as we are sponsored this Masechta, this wonderful, incredible Masechta by Shalom Fogel in the Nishmas, Rabbi Yaakov Zev ben Rabbi Yehuda Aye, Rivka bas Rabbi Yaakov Yosef, Tzivya Miriam bas Rav Gad, Yosef ben Tzion ben Rabbi Yaakov Zev, by Baruch Ian Lila Nishmas, Yaakov Chaim ben Abba, Esther bas Gittel, Avram ben Shmuel HaKoyen, by Yaakov Yamansky, Akos HaTov to the Rav and the Zum family, and Nachas from children and grandchildren, by A.B. Spry, from Nachas from all his children, by Ed Salah from London, and Joshua Rosenberg, a virtual Talmud. We welcome in the shul, in the Agudas Yisrael, Beis Zev, Ruvain Shannon, Rich Leonard, Berish Kesselman, Yisrael Fisher from Tannersville, Saba, Dr. Guy, and Chassandanan, Michal Chavin, back in the saddle, Eddie Chazan, Yisrael Meir Kaplan, Menachem Yamansky, Aaron Swade, Baruch Ian, Irving Fishbaum, Mo Kushner, Nachman Chapler, Yitzhak Fuchs, Avram Schenkman, Richard Rosenzweig, Moshe Lehman, Ilya Shutman, Rabbi Kranz, Abe Arbach, Reb Rezepkowitz, Chaim from Flatbush, whoever that is, it's great to have you, Chaim from Flatbush, and David Helf got on Kol as we begin Chavtes Amud Aleph. We're ahead. We're holding by Ella Amarava, looking for the Rabbanan's reason why, in order for Baruch to establish that the land that was formerly mine is that he's occupying is his, without a shtar, he has to be in it 3 years. Elama Rava Shata Kamaisa, because I, the Mari Kama, the original owner, the first year, Machalinish, I'll look away from somebody occupying my land. Tarte Machal, 2 years, I'll look away. Tlas, but after 3 years, Loi Machal, and if I'm quiet after 3 years, that's proof that it belongs to Baruch. So the Gemara says, if up till the end of 3 years, I'm Michael, then why, if I take back the land, could I demand the fruit for all 3 years? But you just said that I was Michael. When Baruch would return me the land, then he should be able to keep what he consumed. Alama Amar Rav Nachman, if Baruch does not have a chazak of 3 years, Hadra Ara, he has to return the land. V'Hadra Peri, he has to also return any fruit that he consumed. So obviously I wasn't Michael. Elama Rava Shata Kamaisa Loi Kapit. The first year I don't show my displeasure. Loi Kapit in Tarte Loi Kapit. 2 years I might not show my displeasure. Tlas, but after 3 years, Kapit. And therefore, if I don't show my displeasure after 3 years, that shows that he's the owner. Now, even though I don't show my displeasure, that doesn't mean that I forgave him what he ate. Amalei Abaye, so Abaye says, if that's the case, if the original owner was people like the family of Bar El Yoshev, the Kopte, they show their irritation, even if somebody crosses their border. If that case, then if Baruch occupies the land for one uninterrupted day, would he already have a good claim? Since the Beit Bar El Yoshev would not keep quiet. And v'chitem, and if you're going to propose that Hakanami, if it would be the family of the Beit Bar El Yoshev, then if Baruch occupies it for 1 day, it would be enough. And then you're going to start having to say different amounts for different people. We can't do that. There's always a blanket amount. Elama Rava, this is the way it goes. It depends how long is the norm to keep the paper. Elama Rava, Shata Kamaisa, the first year, Mistar Inish Bishtare. It's normal for people to keep their document. Tarte V'Tlas, the second year, and also the third year, Mizdar. Tvei, more than 3 years, if a person is occupying it uninterrupted, loy mizdar, he's not careful to keep the paper anymore, and therefore I can't say after 3 years, Baruch, where's your document? And therefore, if he has it uninterrupted without me making a macha, without me lodging a protest, he's not expected to keep the paper for more than 3 years. Amalei Abaya, so Abaya says, if I lodge a protest in front of 2 witnesses, but not in Baruch's presence, that shouldn't be a good protest. Because Baruch will say, well, you didn't tell it to me, so I didn't know to keep the paper longer. If you would have protested in my presence, then I would have kept the paper longer. Because I told Baruch, no monkey business. I lodged the mecha in front of 2 witnesses, and those witnesses have friends, and their friends have friends, and the news definitely got back to you. As the Gemara said earlier, your friend has a friend, and the friend of your friend has a friend. And therefore, if you lodge a protest in front of 2 people, that has wings, and it would have definitely got back to Baruch, and he should have known to hold the paper. Amar Rav Huna, Shalosh Shanim She'amru, the 3 years that Baruch has to occupy it in order for him to establish a chazaka, hu she'achlon ritzufos. It has to be 3 consecutive years. So the Gemara says, "My kamash Shmuel, what's the chiddush? Tanina cheskasan shalosh shanim miyom liyom." We said that the occupation has to be 3 years from day to day. Says, I might think that means 3 full years, but they could be every other year. Mao, the same of miyom liyom, that comes to tell me it has to be all 365 days. La'afuke mekutois, it can't be fractured years. But I might think it could be even if he occupied it the 1st year, the 3rd year, and the 5th year, that's also good. Kamash Malan, that it has to be 3 years in a row. Amar Rav Chama, Umoidi Rav Huna ba'asrei demovrei bagay. Rav Chama says that Rav Huna agrees that if it's a place where every other year they leave fallow, this is called in order to give the land a rest, they would plant only every other year and give the land a rest the 2nd year. So in that case, then 1, 3, and 5 would be a good chazaka. Says Gemara, well, Pshita, isn't that obvious? So then 1, 3, and 5 is in essence doing it in a row. Says Gemara, Leit Tzricha, the Ika de Moiver, some leave the land fallow every other year. The Ika de Loi Moiver. And then there are those that don't leave it fallow every other year. V'hai Gavra Moiver. And Baruch left it fallow every other year. So Mount the same, I could say to him, you don't have a shtar. If it was yours, you should have used it 3 years in a row. Amalei im isa dididachave, if it's yours, and you wanted to develop a cheskes gimel shanim, iboylech lemizri, you should have planted it 3 years in a row. Kamash Malan, that Baruch could say, what am I going to do? Everybody in the whole valley does this rotating crop. If I'm going to use the land in the 2nd year when nobody's planting in the 2nd year, I'm going to have to hire guards because there's nobody else around. The Amalei Chada Ara Bekule Baga, one land in the entire valley, Loi Matzino Linter. I can't guard it alone. V'inami, he could say, why should I do it? I don't want to burn out my crops, my land. It's better for me to do this rotating crop, because it doesn't burn out the land and it grows better. As we welcome in Ruvain Palak and Michal joining us now for our 28th Zoomer of the evening. Sans Marshall Castle for the 2nd night. Sans Mark Frankel. We're missing good people here this evening. For those that are joining us, we're on Chav Tes Amud Aleph in the last narrow line towards the bottom. Tanan, Cheskas Habatim, you develop a chazaka on a house, but if you need 3 consecutive every day, how do you have that with a house? You have edus that they occupied it in the day, but how do you know that they occupied it in the night? You see people going in and out. You see, the windows open. You don't know if they're occupying it in the night. So the Gemara says, yes, you do. Who testifies about houses? Shivave, neighbors. Shivave, the neighbors made the yadeh. They know b'yamama ubalelia. They know that people are occupying it in the day and the night because they don't see the family leave in the beginning of the night. Rav Amarava says, you know what it's talking about? It's talking about where you rented it to people, and they said that they rented it for 3 years, day and night. 2 people came, we rented it from Baruch, and we lived in it 3 years, day and night. So there are witnesses that Baruch had occupation because he collected rent for 3 years, day and night. So the Gemara says, but how can you trust them? They paid it to Baruch. If it turns out to be mine, the Marikama, they're going to have to pay me. Amalei Rav Yemel Rav Ashi Hani Noigin Beidusana. They're not impartial witnesses. The Eloi Yemrei Hachi, because if they don't say that it's Baruch's, Amrina Lahu, then the court will tell them Zilu Havalei Agabei Salai. Now pay Rabbi Weiss. So they wanted to make sure that it's Baruch's because they paid him for the 3 years. Amalei, so the Gemara says, we're not talking about where they paid already Baruch. Daine de Shvilei Hachidani. Only inferior judges would do that. We're talking about where they didn't pay the 3 years yet. And they come to us and they ask us, who should we pay? Should we pay Baruch or should we pay Rabbi Weiss? But they said we rented it for 3 years from Baruch. Where they were holding the rent of the 3 years, and they said to the court, who should we give it to? So they're not Nagei B'Davar, but they do say we rented it from Baruch for 3 years. So they are testifying that Baruch had an occupation of collecting rent for 3 years, both day and night. Now, Mazutra says that normally we only need testimony that they used it in the day. Because we assume if they used it in the day, they slept there in the night. However, v'iton v'amar, but if I, as the Marikama say, I don't believe you used it in the night. Bring 2 witnesses that you used it in the night as well, then tanasa taina, then it's a good claim. However, the Gemara does say, as we turn to Chav Tes Amud Beis, Mazutra admits where the Marikama, where the original owner, were peddlers that traveled a lot and went to other cities. So it's easy for Baruch to come and squat. So even if the owner doesn't ask for testimony in the day and night, Bezdin demands it. Because it's suspicious, because Baruch says, I know these guys are not around, I could squat in their house. On the other hand, Rav Huna, who you normally says you need witnesses for the day and the night, he agrees that if it's a store, Bechanusa de Mechuzah, that if it's a store on Main Street in Mechuzah, then you only have to bring testimony for usage in the day, because stores are only open in the day and not in the night. It's not like New York City, it's a city that never sleeps. The Lamama Avinda, it's used in the day. L'leila loy avinda, it's not used in the night. Okay, just getting underway, and already well underway. This is a good clip. This is a clip that, Dr. Block says this is the way to travel. And especially on the night where we have a triple crown tonight, Chumash here, Mishnah Yomis. By the way, by now everybody should have seen that it was put on our chat, the audio of the Q&A, so that's available. So the video is playing hard to get. There's some technical difficulties with the video, so the video will be available eventually, but so far it's been having technical difficulties. Now, the Gemara tells us, Rami Bar Chama, V'Rav Ukva Bar Chama, Rami Bar Chama and Rav Ukva Bar Chana, Zovan Hahia Amsa Bahadei Adadi. They bought a maidservant in partnership. Now, each one wanted to safeguard that the other should never have a Cheskas Gimel Shana. So therefore, Mar Ishtamish Barishayna Shlishis V'Chamisas, one used the maidservant on the odd years, 1, 3, and 5, Omar Ishtamish Bashniya Revius V'Shishis, and one used it on the even years, 2, 4, and 6. Now the original owner of the slave came and said that it's really his, and and she was never properly purchased. Nafik Irer Ilva, and they didn't have a shtar. But what they wanted to say is, listen, together they used it 6 consecutive years. They used it 6 consecutive years. One was 1, 3, 5, and one was 2, 4, 6. So also the Kami to Rava, they came before Rava. Amalahu, so he said to them, you outsmarted yourself. Why did each of you use it every other year? Because you didn't want to develop a chazaka on each other. My time of the that you shouldn't develop a chazaka one on the other. Just like either one of you can't claim a chazaka. Neither of you used it 3 years in a row, so you can't claim a chazaka. And if you don't have paper, you're going to have to return her to the marikama, to the original owner. However, v'loy amrin ela d'loy kosav itra, but that's only if they didn't write a sharing agreement. They didn't write a shtar that says that one's going to have it the even years and one's going to have it the odd years. Aval kosav itra, but if they wrote such a document, then that would be known. Documents have a kol islay, and therefore the owner will know that they are sharing it as a cooperative deal, and therefore it's like a chazaka already of 6 years, and then the owner should have kept the paper, and if he doesn't, he has no claim on them. Now, Amar Rava, this next halacha sounds simple. Achla kula chutz mebeis raiva. If Baruch is occupying what was formerly my land, and he used it for 3 uninterrupted years, except for 1/4 of a kav. So he has a right to claim all of it is his, except that 1/4 of a kav. That 1/4 of a kav he doesn't have a chazak on, and therefore he has to give it back to me. Kana kula chutz mebeis raiv. I'm Rav Huna bar Rabbi Yeshua, but Rav Huna bar Rabbi Yeshua qualifies this and says, "V'loy amran elo debar zriyahi." That's only if that 1/4 of a kav could be planted. And since he didn't plant it, he doesn't have a claim of chazaka. Avalabar zriyahu, but if that 1/4 of a kav is not fertile, so then Konila Gavara, he acquires it together with the rest of the land. Because it's not, I can't say, well, you didn't use that. He'll say, I didn't use that because it's not something that's fertile. Says the Gemara, if so, let's say he claims he bought for me a rocky land that can't be planted, a few acres of rocky terrain, how is he going to have a chazaka? Obviously, by keeping his animals there, or and spreading out fruit there for storage or to get dried out. So this rova, he should have used keeping his animals or leaving fruit to dry or piling up fruit. He should have either kept animals there or spread fruit. And since he didn't, he has to give it back to me. Now, the next case, as we move into our 29th Zoomer of the evening, as Michal Chavin is popping in and out over here, says the Gemara, as we are holding on the bottom of Chav Tes Amud Beis, 29b towards the bottom, Ha'uda Amalei L'Chavrei, I tell Yisrael Fisher, my boys by base. I tell him, what are you doing in the house? So Yisrael says, what do you mean? What am I doing? Amalei minoch zavinte, I bought it from you, va'ach l'shnei chazaka, and I've been living here for 3 years. And he brings witnesses that he's been living in the outside of the house for 3 years. Amalei, so I said, that doesn't mean anything. I did more than protest. I was living in the inner rooms. And since I was living in the inner rooms and passing through you, I never thought I needed to protest. I was living in the inner rooms, and that's why I never protested. So also the Kamid Rav Nachman. So Yisrael came before Rav Nachman. Amalei, so Rav Nachman said, if you want to own this house, Zil Barar Achiloska, clarify that you were living in it 3 years without Rabbi Weiss being inside the inner rooms. If not, then, since Rabbi Weiss was the original owner, he could claim that he just had you there as a guest, and he doesn't have to protest because he was living in the house. So Rava doesn't buy this. Amalei Rava says in consternation, Hachi Dina, should that be the rule? Rabbi Yisrael is occupying the house, so he's the muzik. And if I want to say I was in the inner room, he brought witnesses that he was occupying 3 years. If I want to say I was in the inner room, I have to bring proof of that. If I want to eject him after he's a chazaka of 3 years, and I don't have any proof that I protested, that I issued a mecha, now I would have to bring proof that I was in the inner room. If I didn't bring proof that I was in the inner room, then it should be awarded to Baruch. Now tomorrow we're going to ask a stira on this from another din of Rava, but that's tomorrow's adventure, as we did this pretty quickly, and now we're going to have the Chumash here.